Lot's wife. There is a woman that Jesus referenced in Luke. Remember Lot's wife. Luke chapter 17, verse 32. Her death was unlike any other in the Bible. Lot's wife is an unnamed woman mentioned only a few times in the Bible. She is a woman who died prematurely as a result of her disobedience to the Lord's word. The truth is that we know more about Lot's wife's death story than anything else about her. In Genesis 13, Abram, Sarai, and Lot depart Egypt with their riches. The majority of the possessions belonged to Abram, who was extremely rich. They moved south and constructed an altar between Bethel and Hai. However, they quickly realized that the land was not suitable for them, because Lot also had flocks, herds, and tenants. Lot chooses Sodom. Conflict developed between Abram's and Lot's shepherds. Abram did not want any hard feelings, so he made a proposal to Lot. Genesis chapter 13, verses 7 to 12. And there was strife and quarreling between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle. Now the Canaanite and the Perizzite were living in the land at the same time, making grazing of the livestock difficult. So Abram said to Lot, "Please, let there be no strife and disagreement between you and me, nor between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, because we are relatives. Is not the entire land before you? Please, separate yourself from me. If you take the left, then I will go to the right, or if you choose the right, then I will go to the left." So Lot looked and saw that the valley of the Jordan was well watered everywhere. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. It was all like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as you go to Zoar at the south end of the Dead Sea. Then Lot chose for himself all the valley of the Jordan, and he traveled east. So they separated from each other. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot settled in the cities of the valley, and camped as far as Sodom and lived there. Lot researched the country and decided on the Jordan plain because it was close to water. Lot pitched his tent toward Sodom, while Abram dwelt in Canaan. Lot traveled with his wife on this journey. Indeed, he moves out of or near the border of the land of promise, to the plain cities whose inhabitants were notorious sinners. Thus, what he saw as a great step forward became his ruin, because these cities were doomed to destruction. Despite the fact that Abraham and Sarah were growing older, the Lord warned him of the escalating evil and impending wrath of Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot was sitting at the entrance to Sodom when two angels approached and offered them a place to stay for the night. They declined because they did not want to spend the night on the street. They eventually agreed and followed Lot, who provided them with food. That night, however, all the men of Sodom heard about the angels and surrounded Lot's house. "Where are the men who came to you tonight?" The angels drew Lot inside and locked the door, then struck the evil ones outside with blindness, to the point where they couldn't find the house's door. The angels told Lot to gather his family and leave Sodom as soon as possible. Lot cautioned his sons-in-law, but they insulted him and disregarded his advice. As daylight came, the angels reminded Lot that judgment was looming and that he ought to remove his wife and daughters from the city. "Flee for your lives," one of the angels exclaimed as they fled the city. "Do not look back or halt anywhere in the plain. Get to the mountains, or you'll be washed away." Then the Lord showered brimstone and fire from heaven on Sodom and Gomorrah, and overthrew those towns and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities and all that grew on the ground. As the cities were being demolished. Genesis chapter 19, verse 26. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Lot and his 2 daughters escaped to Zoar, a city in the adjacent mountains. According to Bible interpretations, Lot's wife was turned into a pillar of salt for looking back, for breaking the instruction not to look back. Her actions indicate that she sympathized with the people of Sodom, and her failure to evade God's wrath serves as a stark warning to others. She was exceedingly blessed to have God's angels in her home. They even took her by the hand and led her out of Sodom. But what good did it all do her in the end? All of God's grace was wasted on her. There are several key takeaways here. Number 1. It is possible to be lost forever. Even though you are religious and have every opportunity to do right, you can come from a pleasing family, have many spiritual advantages, and still be lost. Number 2. You can leave the world and begin on the correct path, but you will be eternally lost if you turn back. You are in charge of your own beliefs. But why did God care if she glanced over her shoulder at Sodom? Number 1. Looking back was an indication of doubt. She had to confess to God the penalty and fate of Sodom. He had spoken, and He would carry out His promise. We may declare that we believe God, yet when the test comes, we waver and look back. God invites us to put our trust in Him and turn our attention to spiritual matters. Also, looking back was non-compliance because God had clearly instructed not to look back. To look back may have revealed her true attachment to Sodom. Was she displaying a love for what she was leaving behind? Her body was leaving, but her heart was still in Sodom. Do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. James chapter 4, verse 4. Do we want to be friends with the rest of the world? This does not imply giving up everything in the world. This world represents everything that is opposed to God, the wickedness that was once a part of your life.